There is a town on Earth where it is illegal to be buried. Not because of a strange law, but because the ground is frozen solid. In another, residents must leave their cars unlocked, just in case they need to escape a polar bear. And in another, thousands of people live in a city just 100 feet wide, squeezed between a river and a cliff. These are the most extreme homes on the planet. We're not just looking at bizarre architecture. We're looking at human survival in places that seem completely unbelievable. What drives a person to build their home not on the safety of the flat Earth, but clinging to the side of a sheer cliff, thousands of feet in the air? You see, for some, the view is worth the risk. For others, it's about getting closer to the heavens, or maybe it's just the only place left to build. We're starting our journey in the places where one wrong step isn't just a stumble. It's a final descent. Our first stop is a place that looks like it was pulled from a fantasy movie. This is Mount Fanjing, or Fanjingshan, in China. It's a sacred Buddhist site, but the thing that makes it truly mind-boggling is what sits on top. After you climb nearly 9,000 stone steps, a journey that takes hours, you reach the peak. But it's not a normal peak. It's a razor-thin spire of rock that splits in two at the top. Rising over 8,000 feet above sea level, this natural pillar is called the Red Cloud's Golden Peak. And balanced on top of these two separate spires, two 500-year-old Buddhist temples. One is dedicated to the Buddha of the present, Sakyamuni, and the other to the Buddha of the future, Maitreya. They are connected to each other by a tiny, narrow stone bridge that spans a chasm. To put it mildly, this is extreme architecture. Monks and pilgrims have been making this climb for centuries. The steps are uneven and in wet weather incredibly slippery. The effort is part of the devotion. But imagine the logistics. Every single brick, every piece of wood, every bag of rice. All had to be hauled up those nearly 9,000 steps by hand. The area is a UNESCO World Heritage Site, not just for the temples, but for its incredible biodiversity. It's an island of ancient forest, dating back to the Tertiary period in a sea of modern development. But the thing nobody tells you is about the weather. It's often shrouded in a sea of clouds, making the temples look like they are literally floating in the sky. It's a home for monks seeking enlightenment, perched on a needle of rock, defying gravity itself. But if you think building on a spire is wild, wait until you see a town that is the spire. Next, we travel to Spain, to Castellfollit de la Roca. This isn't a single home, it's an entire village built on a tightrope. The town is perched on a narrow sliver of basalt rock. A cliff formed from two separate ancient lava flows. How narrow. At its thinnest point, the town is only 2 houses wide. That's it. The cliff itself is over 160 feet high and stretches for more than half a mile. The houses are built right up to the edge. Their back windows opening up to a sheer drop into the river gorge below. This place has been inhabited for over 1,000 years. The thing is, it was built here for protection. Back in the Middle Ages, having the Fluvia and Torinel rivers on either side and a sheer cliff all around made you very, very safe from your enemies. Today, it's home to about 1,000 people. The streets are tiny and shadowed by the tall, narrow buildings. The old town's church of San Salvador is pressed right against the cliff edge, daring the void. What's it like to live here? Well, you get used to the views, but many people are crazy about the local food. The volcanic soil is perfect for growing beans. And the town is known for its bakeries and traditional sausages. You can stay in small guest houses, but the real attraction is just walking the main street. Knowing that solid ground is only a few feet wide beneath you. Living on a cliff is one thing. But what about climbing one barefoot just to get to church? Now we head to Ethiopia, to a place that tests faith and physical limits. This is Abuna Yamata Gu. It is without a doubt one of the most inaccessible places of worship on earth. It's not just on a cliff, it's in a cliff, carved into the side of a vertical spire of rock over 8,400 feet up in the Geralta mountain range. And the climb, to put it mildly, it's terrifying. There is no gift shop, no safety rail, and no elevator. To get there, you have to cross a natural stone bridge with a sheer drop on both sides. Then, you must climb a 1,500-foot cliff face. And here's the truly astonishing part. Parts of this climb must be done barefoot, using tiny, 1,000-year-old hand grips and footholds carved into the rock. At one point, you have to cross a narrow ledge with a 1,000-foot drop on either side. Why? The church was built here in the 5th century. The legend says its founder, Father Yamata, chose the spot to be closer to God and farther from the world. Inside, the small church is covered in perfectly preserved paintings. The most incredible detail is that these 1,500-year-old frescoes are so vibrant. They are in near perfect condition because the dry air and lack of humidity at that extreme altitude have protected them from decay. Priests carry babies up this cliff to be baptized. What many overlook is that the priests and the congregation do this climb regularly. Sometimes several times a week. It's an act of extreme faith in a truly impossible place. A church in a cliff is amazing, but what about a massive monastery built out of one? Let's fly over to Turkey, to the Sümeyla Monastery. This place looks like it was punched into the side of a mountain. It's a massive Greek Orthodox monastery clinging to a sheer cliff face 1,200 meters, that's nearly 4,000 feet. up in the Pontic Mountains overlooking the Altindere Valley. It was founded 1600 years ago, back in the year 386. The legend says two priests from Athens, Barnabas and Sophronios, found a miraculous icon of the Virgin Mary in a cave here and decided to build a monastery around it. What started as a small cave church grew over centuries into a sprawling complex. It has libraries, kitchens, monks' cells, multiple chapels, and an aqueduct. All hanging over a steep valley. The interiors are covered in beautiful frescoes, though many have been damaged over the years. For centuries, it was a hugely important center for learning and religion. But the thing nobody tells you is its recent history. It was abandoned in 1923 during a population exchange between Greece and Turkey. It sat empty for decades, a silent ghost on a cliff. Today, it's a museum and a major tourist attraction, recently reopened after a massive 5-year restoration project. This involved stabilizing the rock face itself, a massive engineering project to prevent rockfalls. You can hike up a steep path or take a bus, but standing on its balconies, you can feel the history whispering from the stone. But carving into a cliff is one thing. What about building on top of a single giant boulder? We journey now to one of the most striking and isolated places. Haid al-Jazil in Yemen. This isn't just a village, it's a fortress on a rock. Imagine a vast empty desert valley called a wadi. And rising from the valley floor is a single colossal boulder, hundreds of feet tall. And perched on the very top of this rock is a tiny village. These homes are 500 years old, but they follow a much older tradition. They are mud brick skyscrapers. Some are several stories high, built from the earth they stand on, with wooden frameworks. They look like they grew out of the rock itself. The village is almost completely vertical. The streets are narrow passages and steep stairs. Why build here? The same reason as Castelfollit, protection. The valley below, Wadi Darwan, floods violently and enemies were a constant threat. From the top of this rock you could see for miles, but life here is tough. To put it mildly, it's extreme. Water has to be hauled up from the wells in the valley far below. Even bringing in groceries is a major physical task. The community relies on ancient rope and pulley systems. The thing nobody tells you is how they are built. These mud brick towers need constant upkeep. A heavy rain could literally dissolve parts of a home. It's a testament to ancient ingenuity, a desert perch of incredible fragile beauty. From a boulder fortress, we go to a mountain range that looks like it was carved with a saw. Back to Spain, but this time to Montserrat Monastery. This place is all about drama. The monastery is perched on the side of a mountain range that looks different. The peaks aren't smooth, they are bizarre, serrated spires of pink conglomerate rock that look like giant fingers, or as the name suggests, a sword mountain. The monastery itself sits at over 4,000 feet. It's a massive complex and it's been a site of pilgrimage for almost 1,000 years. Why? It holds the famous statue of the Mère de Dieu de Montserrat, the Black Madonna. It's a small wooden statue, and pilgrims from around the world come to touch it, believing it has healing powers. But the truly astonishing part here is the legend. What many overlook is that this mountain is one of the supposed locations of the Holy Grail. The jagged peaks and hidden caves inspired myths of the Grail Castle. You can reach it by a winding road, a cable car, or a funicular railway. But the monastery is still active. About 80 monks live here following the rule of St. Benedict. They also run one of the oldest boys' choirs in Europe, the Escolania, which you can hear perform daily. You can visit the basilica, but for many, the real experience is hiking the trails above the monastery, getting lost among those impossible saw-toothed spires. But if you think these spires are impressive, wait until you see the pillars of Meteora. We're going to Greece, to a place that truly defines breathtaking. This is Meteora. The name means suspended in the air, and that's exactly what this is. It's a complex of monasteries built on top of enormous natural stone pillars. These aren't just hills, they are sheer-sided columns of rock. Rising over 1,300 feet from the valley floor. Geologists say these pillars are sandstone and conglomerate, formed by an ancient river delta millions of years ago, then sculpted by wind and water. And on the tiny, flat tops of these pillars, monks in the 14th century built their homes. They built 24 monasteries in total. How? The thing nobody tells you is that for the first few hundred years there were no stairs. The only way up or down was in a large rope basket or net. Monks and supplies were hauled up by hand, a terrifying slow ascent. They said they only replaced the ropes when the Lord let them break. Why such an extreme spot? It was a time of great instability. The monks were fleeing from invaders. These pillars were the perfect, inaccessible refuge. Today, only 6 of the monasteries are still active. They are now accessible by stairs carved into the rock, but the rope baskets are still there, used for hauling supplies. Staying in the nearby town of Kalabaka, you can look up at sunset and see these astounding structures glowing, floating above the world. Building on a pillar is hard. But what about a cliff that's said to be the home of a flying tigress? Our next stop is in the Kingdom of Bhutan, Paro Taktsang, better known as the Tiger's Nest. This is the postcard image of Bhutan, and for good reason. It's a monastery that seems to be glued to the side of a sheer cliff 3,000 feet above the Paro Valley. The legend is the most incredible part here. In the 8th century, the master Padmasambhava, who brought Buddhism to Bhutan, is said to have flown to this very spot on the back of a magical flying tigress. He then meditated in a cave here for 3 years, 3 months, 3 weeks, 3 days and 3 hours. The monastery was built around that sacred cave. Getting there is a serious hike. It's a steep 2-hour climb up to over 10,000 feet in altitude. The final approach is a series of rock-carved stairs that go down one side of a gorge and up the other, right next to a giant waterfall. It is not for the faint of heart. What many overlook is that the entire complex was almost completely destroyed by a fire in 1998. What you see today is a painstaking reconstruction, which was a massive national project for Bhutan, completed in 2005. Monks still live and meditate here. Visitors are allowed in, but you have to surrender your cameras and phones at the gate. It's a place of pure mountainous reverence, perched in a spot that seems to defy all logic. But not all high places are for monks. Some are just a normal vertical town. Let's head to South America, to Iruya, Argentina. This isn't a monastery, it's a living, breathing colonial village that seems to be cascading down the side of a mountain. It's located in the high Andes at an altitude of over 9,100 feet. The thing that gets you about Iruya is the streets. There are very few flat surfaces. Most streets are just incredibly steep, narrow cobblestone staircases. The town is built on an impossible slope, with the houses painted in bright pastel colors stacked on top of each other. The tiny yellow church sits on the one small piece of flat land available. The town is deeply connected to the local Quechua people, and you can see local festivals and traditions that haven't changed in centuries. Getting here is an adventure in itself. It's a 3-hour bus ride along a winding, unpaved, single-track road that crosses rivers and clings to the sides of canyon. For many people, just getting there is a test. But once you arrive, you feel like you've stepped back in time. It's quiet, the air is thin, and the views are staggering. The local people are incredibly resilient, living a life dictated by the vertical landscape. But what if the people on the cliffs just vanished? We fly to the United States, to Mesa Verde, Colorado. Here we find some of the most mysterious and astounding homes in North America. These are the cliff dwellings of the ancestral Puebloan people. For over 700 years they lived here, first on the mesa tops, and then in the 13th century they moved into the cliffs. These aren't small huts. These are entire stone cities tucked perfectly into massive overhanging canyon alcoves. The most famous, Cliff Palace, had 150 rooms and over 20 kivas. These circular subterranean rooms were the spiritual center of the community, entered by a ladder through a hole in the roof. They built multi-story stone structures, all perfectly protected from the elements by the rock lip above. They were master builders, fitting their homes into the natural curve of the rock. And then, the most astonishing part is the mystery. Around the year 1300, after living here for generations, they just left. Historians believe a combination of a massive multi-decade drought, resource depletion, and social conflict forced them to move south. But for a short, brilliant period, they built and thrived in these stone cities in the sky, leaving behind silent, beautiful mysteries under the canyon lips. An empty cliff city is eerie. But what about one built to hide 20,000 people? Our final stop in the high places is in the country of Georgia, Vardzia. This is not a city on a cliff, it's a city inside a cliff. In the 12th century, the great Queen Tamar, one of Georgia's greatest rulers, needed a place to hide her people from invading armies, particularly the Mongols. Her solution? Dig. Vardzia is a sprawling cave city. At its peak, it housed over 20,000 people, some say 50,000. It had 13 levels dug deep into the side of the Eresheti mountain. This wasn't just a few caves, it was a metropolis. It had a throne room, a complex irrigation system, apartments, wine cellars, a pharmacy, and a massive church whose bell tower was visible. What many overlooked was that this was meant to be invisible. The original city was completely hidden, with only a few secret tunnels leading in. But the thing nobody tells you is what happened next. A massive earthquake in the year 1283 ripped the face off the mountain, exposing the city's hidden core to the world. It was like an ant colony suddenly revealed. A few monks still live here, maintaining the church in this massive, earthquake-revealed camouflage of stone. From homes in the sky, we now go to homes buried deep within the earth. Humans are surface dwellers, or are we? When the world above becomes too harsh, too hot, or too dangerous, we do what any sensible creature does: we dig. We're now exploring the world's most incredible underground homes and the most impossibly squeezed cities. Places where home is a dugout, a cave, or a sliver of land 100 feet wide. First, we go to the opal capital of the world, Coober Pedy, Australia. From the air, it looks like a barren red moonscape. It's the middle of the outback, and the heat is, to put it mildly, intense. Summer temperatures regularly hit 122 degrees Fahrenheit in the shade. It's a harsh landscape. So where are the houses? They're underground. The roughly 1,700 residents of Coober Pedy live in dugouts. These are homes bored straight into the hillsides, but these aren't damp, dark caves. They are sprawling, comfortable homes with bedrooms, kitchens, and even walk-in closets. The thing is, the rock, sandstone and siltstone, maintains a perfect constant temperature of around 74 degrees all year long. No air conditioning needed, and it's not just homes. The town has underground churches, underground hotels, and underground shops. There's even an underground bar. What many overlook is that this all started because of opal mining. Miners digging for the precious stone realized it was cooler to live in their mines. Many residents still noodle for opals in their spare time, sometimes finding valuable stones just by expanding a room. You can stay in a dugout hotel and even play golf on the grassless course, where players carry a small piece of turf for their shots. Living underground is smart, but what about living in a city that's paper thin? Let's go back to China, to the city of Yanjin. This place holds a bizarre record. It is widely considered the skinniest city on the planet. It's not underground, it's just impossibly squeezed. The city is built in a narrow valley pressed between the steep green mountains of Yunnan province and the swirling Nangxi River. How skinny. In many places, the city is only about 300 feet wide. At its narrowest, it's barely 100 feet across. 400,000 people live in this thin urban ribbon. The buildings are built on stilts right over the river to protect them from floods. These are called diojiaolu, a traditional design. But here they are taken to an extreme, sometimes built 5 or 6 stories high on thin concrete pillars. Why would anyone build a city here? The river has been a critical trade route for centuries, and this was one of the few places to build. What's it like to live here? You don't get a lot of direct sunlight. The streets are narrow and the river is a constant presence. The really amazing part is that there is basically one main road on each side of the river. A traffic jam here would be a total nightmare. It's a stunning example of urban life forced into an impossible sliver of land. But if living in a narrow valley is tight, imagine living under a giant rock. We return to Spain, to Setenil de las Bodegas. This is one of the most famous Pueblos Blancos, white villages of Andalusia, but with a major twist. Many of the homes aren't just near a cliff, the cliff is their roof. The town is built along a narrow river gorge. Over centuries, the river carved out massive overhangs in the soft sandstone. The people of Setenil didn't fight this, they used it. They built their houses in and under these massive rock ledges. The rock itself forms the roof and back wall of many homes. Walking through the streets is an amazing experience. In some, the massive bulging rock overhangs so far it completely blocks the sky, creating a natural shaded tunnel. It's a striking feature that has practical benefits, just like in Cuba Pedy. The rock keeps the homes cool in the blistering Spanish summer and warm in the winter. The thing nobody tells you is the name. The de las Bodegas part means of the wineries. The cool, dark spaces under the rock were perfect for storing wine and other goods. The town is famous for its tapas bars, many of which are tucked into these cave spaces. It's a perfect embrace between nature and human building. But these rock homes are plain to see. What about homes that are totally invisible? We travel to North Africa, to Matmata, Tunisia. From a distance, this desert landscape looks empty. You might see a few palm trees, but no buildings. That's because the homes are hidden. The local Berber people have been building underground for centuries to escape the extreme desert heat. But these aren't the dugouts of Cuba Pedy. These are troglodyte homes. A family will dig a massive circular pit into the ground, often 30 feet deep and 30 feet across. This central pit becomes their courtyard, open to the sky. Then they dig sideways from the bottom of this pit to create rooms, bedrooms, a kitchen, a stable. From the surface, the only thing you might see is a hole in the ground. The most surprising detail is that this style of building is ancient. But it became world famous for a very specific reason. This is where George Lucas filmed parts of Star Wars, the underground home of Luke Skywalker. That was a real Berber home in Matmata. You can even stay in the Hotel Sidi Driss, which was used as the set. You can have a drink in the exact spot where Luke complained about power converters. A hidden courtyard is clever. But what about a hidden city, 18 levels deep for 20,000? Our last stop in the subterranean world is back in Turkey, in the region of Cappadocia. This is Derinkuyu. From the surface, it looks like any other small, dusty town, but beneath its streets lies a secret that is, to put it mildly, staggering. Derinkuyu is an ancient, multi-level underground metropolis. It is massive. It goes down 18 stories, that's 279 feet into the volcanic rock. It was large enough to house 20,000 people, along with their livestock and food. And this isn't just a few caves, this is a complex, ventilated city. It had everything. Living quarters, stables, churches, wine presses, and schools. The engineering is brilliant. It has thousands of ventilation shafts, some over 180 feet long, that bring fresh air all the way to the bottom. Some of these shafts were disguised on the surface as simple wells, but the most incredible part is the security. Derinkuyu was built for defense. The narrow passages could be sealed from the inside by massive circular stone doors like giant millstones that were impossible to open from the outside. Who built it? The Phrygians, thousands of years ago, and it was later expanded by Christians hiding from persecution. It's an ant colony of human ingenuity. We've seen homes in the air and in the earth. Now we head to the water. Water is life, but it's also one of the most powerful and destructive forces on Earth. For these next communities, water isn't just a resource, it's their front yard, their highway, and their biggest threat. These are the homes built on stilts, on floating reeds, and on islands that vanish twice a day. We start in England, on the holy island of Lindisfarne. This is a beautiful, historic village and the site of one of the most important monasteries in English history. But it has one very big catch. It's a tidal island. Lindisfarne is connected to the mainland by a long paved causeway. But twice a day, every day, the North Sea rolls in and completely submerges the road. If you get your timing wrong, you're stranded. Cars are washed away every single year by tourists who ignore the warning signs. The roughly 160 residents live their lives by the tide table. They have to plan every trip to the mainland, every grocery run, every doctor's appointment around the sea. The island itself is beautiful, with a castle and the ruins of the priory. The thing nobody tells you is the history. The famous brutal Viking raid on this priory in 793 is often considered the official start of the Viking Age in England. It sent shockwaves through Christian Europe. It's a haven of history, but one that demands respect for the rhythm of the ocean. But what if there was no road at all? Not even one that appears twice a day? Let's go to the heart of the Amazon. This is Iquitos, Peru. It holds a mind-boggling title. It is the largest city in the world that cannot be reached by road. It's a city of 500,000 people, a bustling modern metropolis. And it's a complete island. Not an island in the sea, but an island in the jungle. Your only ways in or out are a multi-day boat trip on the Amazon River or a flight. That's it. There are no Iquitos to any other city, a distance of over 250 miles. Everything that comes into the city, cars, building materials, food, fuel, has to be shipped in by boat or plane. The city itself is a wild mix. It has grand mansions built during the rubber boom of the late 1800s. This era brought incredible wealth, and you can still see the Casa de Fierro, an iron house designed by Gustave Eiffel, which was shipped in pieces up the Amazon. But the most extreme homes are in the Belen neighborhood. This is a floating village. The houses are either built on massive stilts to stay above the seasonal floods, or are built on balsa wood rafts that rise and fall with the river. During high water season, the streets are canals, and everyone gets around by canoe. Houses on stilts are one thing, but what about houses on islands that you have to build yourself? We stay in Peru, but we climb high into the Andes to Lake Titicaca. This is the highest navigable lake in the world, and on its waters live the Uros people. The Uros live on the floating islands. These are not natural islands, they are man-made. The Uros people weave their own islands from the totora reeds that grow in the lake. It's an ancient, incredible process. They create a base of dense floating reed roots and then layer bundles of fresh reeds on top. The islands are thick, bouncy, and slightly wet to walk on. The houses are made of reeds. The boats are made of reeds. They even eat the reeds. But the thing nobody tells you is the maintenance. The reeds at the bottom are constantly rotting away. The Uros have to add new layers of fresh reeds to the top every few weeks to keep their islands from sinking. It's a never-ending job. What many overlook is their history. The Uros people built these islands to escape conflict with other groups on the mainland, like the Incas. They could literally move their homes if threatened. Rebuilding a reed island is tough. But what about a lake that tries to swallow your house whole? We fly to Cambodia, to the Tonle Sap Lake. This is one of the most unique ecosystems on the planet. For most of the year, it's a large, fairly shallow lake. But during the monsoon season, the Mekong River becomes so powerful that it reverses the flow of the Tonle Sap River, forcing water back into the lake. The truly amazing part is the change. The lake swells from 1,000 square miles to over 6,000 square miles. Its depth explodes from 6 feet to over 30 feet. So how do you live here? The communities on the lake have two solutions. This lake is one of the most productive freshwater fishing areas in the world, and the entire ecosystem is built around this massive pulse of water. Some live in floating villages, similar to Iquitos, with homes, schools, and even pig farms built on rafts. But many live in stilt villages. These are some of the most dramatic-looking homes on Earth. The houses are built on top of stilts that are 10 meters, over 30 feet tall. In the dry season, the houses tower over a dusty plain and people use ladders to get in. In the wet season, the water rises right up to their front porches and the stilts are almost completely submerged. Stilts are a clever solution. But what if you could just hide from the water completely? Let's return to Greece, to the Gibraltar of the East. Monemvasia. This is an entire, perfectly preserved Byzantine town, built on the back of a giant rock off the coast. And here's the thing, from the mainland, you can't see it. The town is carved into a plateau on the seaward side of the rock. It was designed to be completely invisible to anyone on the mainland, a perfect, fortified hideaway from invaders. It's connected to the land by a single narrow causeway. You enter through a fortified gate and step into a time machine. There are no cars. The streets are narrow, cobblestone alleys and stairs that wind up the rock face. The town is split into a lower town, with its shops and homes, and an upper town, now ruins, with a massive fortress. It was a major shipping port passing between Byzantine, Venetian, and Ottoman hands. It was so well defended, it was the last Byzantine town to fall. People still live here, running guest houses and restaurants in the restored Byzantine buildings. It's a secret coastal world, hidden in plain sight. A hidden sea fortress is one thing, but what about a tiny, perfect oasis in the driest desert on Earth? Back to Peru, to a place that shouldn't exist. This is Huacachina. It's a real-life mirage. Imagine the driest desert in the world. The Atacama. Now, picture endless towering sand dunes, some of them hundreds of feet high. And nestled right in the middle of them is a tiny village, complete with palm trees, hotels, and a shimmering green lagoon. This is Huacachina. It's a natural oasis, and for decades it was a getaway for the Peruvian elite. Today, it's a mecca for backpackers and sandboarding, but the thing nobody tells you is its precariousness. The lagoon, which is fed by an underground spring, is drying up. Local legend says the lagoon was created when a beautiful princess was frightened by a hunter. Became the dunes. To save their astounding home and their tourist economy, the residents have had to start pumping water into the lagoon. The village of just over 100 people is in a constant battle against the encroaching desert, trying to keep their perfect, beautiful mirage alive. An oasis is fragile, but what about a village where only 12 families live next to a waterfall that falls into the ocean? We travel far north to the Faroe Islands, to the village of Gassadalur. For centuries, this was one of the most isolated villages in Europe. It's perched on the edge of a towering cliff on the island of Vagar. On one side are steep mountains, on the other, a sheer drop to the Atlantic Ocean. The village is famous for the stunning Mulafosur waterfall, which plunges from the cliff's edge directly into the sea. Fewer than 20 people live here, and until recently, life was incredibly hard. The thing nobody tells you is that until 2004, there was no road. The only way in or out was a strenuous, multi-hour hike over the 400-meter mountain or a perilous boat landing and climb up the cliff. Even the postman had to make this hike several times a week. Before the tunnel, even getting a casket out for burial was a massive, multi-day ordeal for the villagers. In 2004, they finally blasted a tunnel through the mountain, connecting Gasadalur to the rest of the island. The tunnel opening was a huge event. The population, which had dwindled to just a handful, is now stable. It's a place of remote, coastal poetry, finally connected to the world. From the cold Atlantic, we now head to the fire and ice of the planet's most extreme climates. Some people seek comfort. Others are born into extremes. We're now going to the places where the very ground is a threat and the air is cold enough to freeze you solid. These are the homes built in the path of lava, on toxic craters, and in the land of the polar bear. We start in Grindavik, Iceland. This fishing town of about 3,400 people was, until recently, a normal Icelandic community. But its location is its undoing. It's built on the Reykjanes Peninsula, a highly active volcanic rift zone. In late 2023 and early 2024, the ground began to shake. The town was hit by tens of thousands of earthquakes in just a few weeks. The ground split open. Magma was moving directly underneath the streets. The entire town had to be evacuated. Then the eruptions began. Fissures opened up just outside the town, and in January 2024, a new fissure opened inside the town limits, sending lava flowing into the streets and setting homes on fire. Defensive walls were hastily built and they successfully diverted some lava flows, but the town's future remains completely uncertain. The residents are now in limbo, their homes destroyed or threatened by a geological gamble. It is a terrifying, real-time example of what it means to live on an island that is still being born. But what about a place so cold? The ground is a problem for a completely different reason. We travel to the high Arctic, to Longyearbyen, Svalbard, Norway. This is one of the northernmost towns in the world. It's a place of extreme cold and months of total darkness, followed by months of total daylight. But the thing nobody tells you is the most famous rule. It's illegal to be buried here. This isn't some strange cultural belief. It's a practical problem. The ground is permafrost, meaning it's permanently frozen. Bodies buried in the local cemetery in the 1950s never decomposed. When scientists exhumed them, they found intact viruses. So, if you are gravely ill, you are flown to the mainland. Life here is dominated by the cold and by polar bears. There are more polar bears than people on the islands. It is mandatory to carry a rifle if you leave the town's safe zone. The safe zone is basically the small main street area. Students at the university even learn to shoot. Even the hike to the famous global seed vault requires an armed guide. But this frozen town holds a secret, a backup plan for all of humanity. Just a short drive from Longyearbyen, built into the same frozen mountain, is the global seed vault. This is one of the most important homes on the planet. It's not for people, it's for seeds. This is humanity's doomsday backup. It's a blast-proof fortress, built to withstand earthquakes, rising sea levels, and even a direct nuclear strike. Inside, behind massive airlocked doors, in a vault kept at 0 degrees Fahrenheit, are over 1 million seed samples from every country on Earth. It holds the genetic backup for our entire food supply. The most surprising detail is how it works. Organizations and countries make deposits just like a bank. It's not a seed bank in the normal sense. It's a safety deposit box. The depositors still own the seeds. The permafrost of the mountain acts as a natural freezer, so even if the power fails, the seeds will stay frozen and viable for centuries. It's the ultimate insurance policy, a frozen ark, safeguarding the future of human life. From the ultimate cold we go to the ultimate heat, living in the path of a killer volcano. Let's go to Indonesia, to Mount Merapi. This is one of the most active and dangerous volcanoes in the world. It erupts every few years, sending deadly clouds of superheated gas and ash called pyroclastic flows racing down its slopes at over 60 miles per hour. And yet, people live here. Thousands of people live in villages high on its fertile slopes. Why? The volcanic ash makes the soil incredibly rich, but it's a deadly trade-off. In 2010, a major eruption claimed over 350 lives. But the most astonishing part is the resilience. The villagers, many of whom have a deep spiritual connection to the mountain, often refuse to leave. They have a spirit gatekeeper who is tasked with reading the volcano's signs. The most famous one, Mbah Marijan, became a national hero. He refused to evacuate in 2010 and perished in the eruption, believing it was his duty. After an eruption, they return, rebuilding their homes on the same fertile, lethal ash. Living near a volcano is one thing. What about working inside a toxic one? This is not a home for many, but it is a workplace that is, to put it mildly, hell on earth. The crater of Ijen holds two incredible features. First, it has the largest, highly acidic crater lake in the world. It's a 1-kilometer-wide cauldron of turquoise battery acid. Second, it has a blue flame. At night, sulfuric gases escaping from cracks ignite, burning with an electric blue light. It's beautiful and deadly. And in this toxic crater, miners work. They hike down into the crater, breathing through thin, wet rags. They break off chunks of pure yellow sulfur, which condenses from the volcanic vents. Then they load it into baskets carrying 90 kilo, that's 200 pounds, loads back up the steep crater rim. They do this twice a day, earning just a few dollars per trip. The sulfuric gas is incredibly damaging to their lungs, and their life expectancy is tragically short. It's a brutal trade for a substance used in cosmetics and sugar. A toxic volcano is hellish. But what about a village in the hottest place on Earth? We're going to Ethiopia, to the Danakil Depression. This is the Hamed Ella village. It sits on a scorching salt plain more than 300 feet below sea level. This is officially one of the hottest inhabited places on the planet. Temperatures in the summer regularly soar past 122 degrees Fahrenheit. But the heat is only part of the story. The landscape is a neon nightmare. It's filled with bubbling acidic hot springs, sulfur fields, and vast cracked salt pans. The Afar people who live here have one trade: salt. For centuries, they have traveled onto the salt flats, cutting large blocks of salt from the crust. This salt trade is thousands of years old. They then load these white gold blocks onto camel caravans for a multi-day trek to the highlands. The caravans can include hundreds of camels and take weeks to reach the markets. It is a brutal, scorching existence, living in stick huts in a place that looks more like the surface of another planet. From scorching heat, we return to the ice. A town navigating skyscraper-sized icebergs. We head to Greenland, to the town of Ilulissat. This town of about 4,600 people is perched at the mouth of the Ilulissat Isfjord, a UNESCO World Heritage Site. And its front yard is an endless parade of glacial giants. The local glacier is one of the fastest moving in the world, and it carves or breaks off more than 35 billion tons of icebergs every single year. These aren't small chunks of ice. They are skyscraper-sized mountains, some rising hundreds of feet out of the water. The people of Ilulissat live with this Arctic ballet every day. The icebergs drift into the bay, getting stuck on the shallow bottom before finally breaking free and floating out to sea. The thing nobody tells you is the danger. When a massive iceberg carves or rolls over, it can create a mini tsunami, swamping boats and flooding the coastline. What many overlook is the history. It's widely believed that the iceberg that sank the Titanic in 1912 originated from this very glacier. But what about a place that's frozen, high, and isolated? Let's travel to the Spiti Valley in India. This is a cold, high-altitude desert, tucked away in the Himalayas at an average height of over 13,000 feet. It is a frozen desert, and for half the year, it's completely cut off from the rest of the world. From October to March, heavy snows close the mountain passes, and the valley's few thousand residents are on their own. Temperatures plummet to minus 22 degrees Fahrenheit. Life becomes a matter of survival, relying on stored food and huddling for warmth. The landscape is stark and stunning, with ancient Buddhist monasteries. The most famous is Ki Monastery. A Pasada-style complex, meaning the rooms are built on top of each other, making it look like a fortress. It has a priceless collection of ancient murals and texts. Getting there, even in summer, involves a long, terrifying drive on some of the world's most treacherous, unpaved roads. It's a mountainous isolation, a true middle land between India and Tibet. But what if the snow itself was the biggest threat? We go to Japan, to the village of Shirakawa-go. This isn't a frozen desert. It's one of the snowiest places on Earth. This mountainous region gets some of the heaviest snowfalls on the planet, with accumulations of over 30 feet being common. So how do the houses survive? They were designed for it. The village is famous for its gasho zukuri farmhouses, some of which are over 250 years old. The name means constructed like hands in prayer. They have massive thatched straw roofs that are incredibly steep. This design is pure genius. The steep slope allows the heavy wet snow to slide right off, preventing the roof from collapsing under the immense weight. The attics, kept warm by the rising heat from the house, were used to raise silkworms. The thing nobody tells you is that the re-thatching of a roof is a massive community event called Yui. Where the entire village comes together to do the work in a single day. From snow, we go back to fire. A village that likes its volcano. We're in the South Pacific, on Tanna Island, Vanuatu. Here, there are villages at the foot of Mount Yasur, one of the most active and accessible volcanoes in the world. And it erupts constantly. We're not talking once a year. We're talking multiple times an hour. For the local people, the thundering booms and sprays of lava are just background noise. They have lived in harmony with this volcano for centuries. Their culture and beliefs are woven around it. What many overlook is that this is a major tourist attraction. You can hike up to the rim of the crater and watch the fiery explosions from just a few hundred feet away. It's one of the few places on Earth you can safely, relatively speaking, get this close to an active volcano. Bizarrely, the island is also home to a cargo cult. Some villagers worship a mythical American Wabtu soldier named John Frum, believing he will one day return with goods and technology. But not all volcanic homes are so loud. Some are just beautiful. Our final stop in this chapter is Santorini, Greece. This is one of the most famous and beautiful islands in the world. Those iconic whitewashed villages clinging to the cliffs with their blue-domed churches, it's breathtaking. But the truly mind-blowing part is what you're standing on. Santorini is a volcano. The entire crescent-shaped island is the rim of a massive active caldera. The beautiful bay that the cruise ships sail into, that's the flooded crater. Around 3,600 years ago, the volcano erupted with such force, the Minoan eruption, island apart, created a massive tsunami and may have ended the entire Minoan civilization. Like Pompeii, Santorini has its own buried city, Akrotiri. It was a Minoan settlement preserved in ash with 3-story buildings and incredible frescoes, but no bodies, suggesting they evacuated. The villages you see today are built on the rim of that catastrophe. Its volcanic beauty, with a hidden, simmering risk right beneath the surface. We've seen fire and ice. Now we visit the most isolated and the most crowded places on Earth. What's more extreme? Being hundreds of miles from your nearest neighbor, or being so crowded you can't see the sky. In this chapter, we're exploring the polar opposites of human settlement, from the loneliest outposts on Earth to the most densely packed urban mazes ever created. We start in the cold, remote north. Churchill, Manitoba, Canada. This small town of about 900 people sits on the shore of the Hudson Bay. It's known by one name, the polar bear capital of the world. Every autumn, hundreds of polar bears migrate to the area, waiting for the bay to freeze so they can hunt seals. The thing is, they walk right through town. This means life in Churchill is different. People leave their cars and homes unlocked. This isn't about being friendly, it's a survival rule. If you're walking down the street and see a bear, you need to be able to jump into the nearest car or house fast. The truly strange part? The town has a polar bear jail. It's an old military hangar where bears that repeatedly wander into town are held. They are kept there for a few weeks and then released back onto the ice once it's frozen. Tourists come from all over but can't just walk around. They explore in tundra buggies, which are massive custom-built trucks with tires over 5 feet tall, keeping them safely above the bears. Churchill is remote, but our next stop makes it look like a bustling city. We're going to the middle of the South Pacific, to Pitcairn Island. This is, to put it mildly, one of the most remote inhabited islands in the world. It's a tiny volcanic speck, and its nearest inhabited neighbor is over 300 miles away. The most astonishing part is its entire population. As of 2025, the population is about 50, not 50,000, just 50. And they are almost all descendants of one of the most famous stories in naval history. The mutineers from the HMS Bounty. In 1790, the mutineers and their Tahitian companions landed here, burned their ship and hid from the world. Their descendants live there to this day. There is no airport. The only way to get there is on a supply ship that visits just a few times a year. You can still scuba dive to the wreck of the Bounty. Fragments of it, like its cannons, are on display in the tiny island museum. It is the definition of isolated legacy. From total isolation, we go to the exact opposite, a vertical human maze. Welcome to Racina, Brazil. This is the largest favela or slum in Rio de Janeiro. It's not just a neighborhood, it's a vertical city. An estimated 100,000 people, some say more, are packed onto a single incredibly steep hillside. The homes are a chaotic maze of brick, concrete, and corrugated tin stacked on top of each other. The streets are narrow, winding alleys and endless staircases. The sheer density is mind-boggling. But the thing nobody tells you is that Racina is a complex, functioning community. It has its own shops, restaurants, and even a TV channel. For a long time, it wasn't even on maps. Now, it's officially recognized as a neighborhood, but basic services like sanitation and electricity are often informal and dangerously improvised. Yet it's a place of incredible energy and resilience. It's a favela. that, unlike many others, is built of permanent materials, a dense, defiant city within a city, climbing toward the sky. Rochina is a maze of new construction, but what about a maze of 500-year-old mud? We return to Yemen, but this time to Shibam. This place has a stunning nickname, the Manhattan of the Desert. It's a 500-year-old city of mud brick skyscrapers. In the middle of a vast, empty desert, this walled city rises straight up. It's composed of about 500 tower houses, some of them as high as 16 stories, and they are all made of mud, baked earth bricks. This is ancient, high-rise engineering. The name was given by a German explorer in the 1930s. The streets are narrow canyons of shadow between the tall buildings. Why build so high? To protect from floods and, of course, from attackers. The city is a masterpiece of urban planning, designed to be cooled by the wind moving through the narrow streets. But the most incredible detail is the maintenance. Like the homes in Haid al-Jazil, these mud towers are vulnerable. They must be constantly replastered with fresh mud to protect them from the rain and wind. It's an ancient, vertical city built from the very ground it stands on. But what if the maze wasn't made of buildings, but of mountains themselves? Our final stop in this chapter is Yangshuo, China. This town is famous for its almost supernatural landscape. It's not just near mountains, it's ensnared by them. Yangshuo is set amidst a forest of 200-meter, that's over 650-foot, karst towers. These are sheer limestone fingers that jut straight up from the flat ground. The town and the surrounding villages are built in the gaps between these massive stone sentinels. The Li River snakes through this geological maze. For centuries, people have lived here, farming in the small patches of flat land. This area is famous for its traditional cormorant fishermen. They use trained birds to catch fish on the Li River, a practice that is now mostly a performance for tourists. Today, it's a huge tourist destination. You can take a bamboo raft down the river or bike through the countryside, and you are constantly surrounded, almost trapped, by this vertical limestone labyrinth. We've seen homes that are lived in. Now we visit the homes that were left behind. The most impossible places aren't always the ones where people live. Sometimes they're the places they left behind. These are the silent cities, the ghost towns, and the ruins that whisper of a time when this was home. Why did they leave? War, disaster, or just time? We start in the jungles of Guatemala, at Tikal. This was once a Maya metropolis, one of the most powerful cities in the ancient world. For over 1,000 years, it dominated the region. It was a sprawling city of limestone pyramids, palaces, and plazas. The temples, some over 230 feet tall, burst through the jungle canopy. They are staggering feats of engineering. But the thing nobody tells you is the mystery. Around the year 900 AD, the city was abandoned. The people just left. The jungle moved in, swallowing the stone pyramids in a green tide for almost 1,000 years. It was rediscovered in the 1840s by local gum sappers, leading to formal expeditions. What you see today is only a fraction of the city. Most is still buried. Why? The prevailing theory is a combination of overpopulation, warfare, and a severe drought. the system collapsed. Today, walking through Tikal, you hear the sounds of howler monkeys, not people, echoing off the ancient reclaimed stones. Tikal was swallowed by the jungle. But what about a city that's being swallowed by the earth? We fly to Italy, to Civita di Bagnoregio. This is La Città che Muore, the dying city. It's a tiny, magical medieval hilltop town perched on a fragile pinnacle of volcanic rock, and it's crumbling. The soft clay and tough rock it sits on is constantly eroding. Landslides have claimed parts of the town over the centuries, leaving it smaller and more precarious. It's connected to the world by a single, long, steep pedestrian bridge, built in 1965. The original ancient donkey path crumbled away. No cars can enter. At its lowest point, the town had fewer than 12 residents. It was a ghost town, but the most surprising part is its rebirth. In recent years, tourists have flocked to see its endangered beauty. This has brought new life with small B&Bs and restaurants opening. But the threat remains. It's a race against time, a beautiful, isolated fragment of the past, holding on as the cliffs crumble beneath it. This city is crumbling, but what about a ghost capital that was once as big as London? We travel to the border of Turkey and Armenia to the ghost city of Ani. This is a truly haunting place. In the 10th and 11th centuries, Ani was the capital of a vast Armenian kingdom. It was known as the City of 1001 Churches. It was a massive, walled metropolis, a rival to Constantinople and Baghdad. Its population may have topped 100,000 people. Then, disaster. A devastating earthquake in 1319 was the beginning of the end. It shattered the city and it never recovered. Invasions and a shift in trade routes sealed its fate. The city began to fade. By the 1700s, it was completely abandoned. What makes a ghost town? Is it just an empty place? A collection of buildings where nobody lives? Or is it something more? Is it a scar on the landscape? A memory, trapped in stone and dust, whispering about the day the world ended? Sometimes that end comes slowly, over centuries, and sometimes it comes in a single, terrifying flash. Today, we're peeling back the layers of silence. We're traveling to the world's most astonishing abandoned places. Cities frozen in time by disaster, war, greed, and the unstoppable march of nature. These aren't just empty ruins, they are time capsules. And each one tells a story. Our first stop takes us to a windy, silent valley. It's a vast, empty grassland, scattered with the magnificent, haunting ruins of its churches and its massive, broken city wall. It sits in a silent, windswept valley, a ghost capital of medieval grandeur. This is Ani. Located in modern-day Turkey, Ani was once one of the most important cities on earth. It was the capital of the Bagratid Armenian kingdom, a metropolis that rivaled Constantinople and Cairo. This wasn't a small outpost. It was a city of over 100,000 people. They called it the City of 1001 Churches. And they weren't exaggerating by much. Ani sat at the crossroads of the Silk Road. Every merchant, every caravan, every scrap of silk and spice traveling between Asia and Europe passed through its mighty gates. The wealth that poured into the city was staggering. The architecture was revolutionary. The churches here were so advanced, with their pointed arches and clustered piers, that historians now believe this is where Gothic architecture may have actually been born, long before it ever appeared in Europe. So what happened? How does a city this powerful, this rich, this important simply vanish? Ani's end wasn't a single event. It was a death by 1,000 cuts. First came the Byzantine Empire, then the Seljuk Turks. In 1319, a devastating earthquake shattered its walls and toppled its cathedrals. The final blow came from the Mongols, and when the trade routes shifted south, the lifeblood of Ani dried up. The city began to empty, slowly, painfully, until only ghosts remained. But what many people overlook is its location today. Ani sits in a highly militarized no-man's land right on the Turkish-Armenian border. The border itself is a deep, impassable gorge with the Akurian River at the bottom. For decades, it was a sealed part of the Soviet Iron Curtain. To visit it, you need special permits. You walk among these silent, towering cathedrals with the sound of wind and the sight of military guard posts on the cliffs opposite. It's a city that died of old age, whispering of a lost empire. Ani is a ghost of centuries, but what about a city frozen in a single terrible day? This is Pripyat, Ukraine. On April 25, 1986, this was a young, modern and vibrant Soviet city. It had nearly 50,000 people. It was a model city, an atom-grad, built specifically for the workers of the nearby Chernobyl nuclear power plant. Life here was a Soviet dream. The average age was just 26. There were brand new apartment blocks, 15 kindergartens, good schools, a hospital, a cinema, and sports complexes. The salaries were high. This was the pinnacle of Soviet technological pride. Then, in the early morning hours of April 26, 1986, during a routine safety test, reactor number 4 went critical. It exploded with the force of 10 tons of TNT, blowing the 2,000-ton lid clean off the reactor core. It unleashed a radioactive fire that shot a plume of deadly isotopes thousands of feet into the atmosphere. A plume that would poison the entire continent. In the city of Pripyat, just 2 miles away, residents woke to a strange metallic taste in the air. They saw a beautiful rainbow-colored column of smoke rising from the plant. Some people reportedly gathered on a railway bridge to get a better look, a place that would later be nicknamed the Bridge of Death. As they were exposed to lethal doses of radiation. The Soviet government, in a fatal moment of denial, kept the disaster a secret. For 36 hours, the city went on. Children played outside, a wedding was held, but the air itself was killing them. Finally, on April 27th, a fleet of over 1,000 buses rolled into the city. The announcement came over the loudspeakers. This was a temporary evacuation. Residents were told to pack just a few belongings, their papers, and enough food for 3 days. They were assured they would be back. They never returned. Today, Pripyat is a time capsule. It's a ghost city, frozen in 1986. School books lie open on desks, right where students dropped them. Dolls are scattered in the cots of empty kindergartens. A giant, iconic yellow Ferris wheel, which was set to open for the May Day celebrations just days after the disaster, stands silent. The thing nobody tells you isn't just what you see, but what you can't see. The pine forest directly next to the plant received a massive, fatal dose of radiation. The trees turned a sick ginger-brown color almost overnight. It became known as the Red Forest before it was all bulldozed and buried in lead-lined trenches. Deep within the ruins of the reactor itself, a molten mass of nuclear fuel, concrete and sand burned its way through the building's basement. They call it the elephant's foot, and even today, it is so radioactive that standing near it for just a few minutes would be a death sentence. The sound of Pripyat is what truly haunts you. It's not just silent, it's filled with the sounds of wind whistling through shattered windows and the calls of wildlife. Wolves, deer and boar have returned, reclaiming the city. Nature has returned, but the city itself is an eerie concrete monument to a nuclear shadow. A nuclear ghost town is chilling. But what about a Machu Picchu where the last man just left? We travel high into the Caucasus Mountains to Dagestan, Russia, to the mountain fortress of Gamsutl. This is Russia's own Machu Picchu. It's an ancient Avar village built thousands of years ago, clinging to the very peak of a mountain over 4,600 feet high. The name Gamsutl means at the fortress's foot in the local language, which is ironic, as it's built on the very top. It was likely an outpost for a much larger fortress ages and ages ago. This place was built for one reason: defense. It's a breathtaking, inaccessible fortress in the sky. The houses are built from the mountain's own rock, so they seem to blend perfectly into the sheer cliffs. From a distance, you can't even tell where the mountain ends and the village begins. The paths are narrow, steep, and treacherous. For centuries, Gamsutl was famous. It was never conquered. Invaders would look up at the impossible fortress and simply turn back. But its time has passed. The fortress that could repel any army couldn't repel one thing: modernity. In the 20th century, the world changed. The young people left for the cities. They wanted jobs, schools, electricity, and running water. Things the ancient, isolated village couldn't provide. The old passed away. The population dwindled from hundreds to 50 to 10. By 2010, the village was almost empty, but the most astonishing part is its final resident. For years, only one man, Ziad Khan. Ziad Khan lived here. He was born in Gamsutl, and he refused to leave. He became the mayor of Gamsutl, its last guardian. He lived without electricity or running water, keeping bees and writing in his journals. He was the last living soul of an ancient community. Ziad Khan passed away in 2015. With his death, the heartbeat of Gamsutl stopped. Now the village is completely, utterly empty. It's a silent, mountainous echo slowly crumbling back into the rock it came from. This village was swallowed by rock. But what about one swallowed by sand? Let's head to the blistering heat of the Namib Desert to Kolmanskop, Namibia. In 1908, a worker named Zacharias Lawala was shoveling sand away from a railway line when he saw something glinting in the sun. He found a diamond. He showed it to his boss, and that single small stone sparked a diamond rush. So intense it built a city in the middle of one of the most barren, hostile landscapes on Earth. In just a few years, a town sprang up from the desert dunes, but this wasn't a rough, ramshackle mining camp. This was a rich, opulent German colonial town. The miners were making so much money they built their grand homes in the German style. They built a ballroom, a casino, a concert hall, and even a bowling alley. This town had the first X-ray machine in the entire southern hemisphere. It had an ice factory in the middle of the desert. It had a swimming pool and a hospital. It was a bizarre, surreal oasis of European opulence, fueled by a fortune in gems. The diamonds were so plentiful, reports say you could crawl on your hands and knees at night with a lantern and just pick them off the sand. But the party didn't last. The diamonds ran out. The problem was, the diamond field was too rich. It was exhausted quickly. By the 1920s, the miners' luck was dwindling. Then, a new, even richer diamond deposit was found far to the south. Almost overnight, the people of Kolmanskop packed their bags, abandoned their magnificent homes, and left. By 1956, the town was completely empty, and then the desert moved back in. Today, Kolmanskop is a stunning, dreamlike ghost town. The beautiful colonial ballrooms and grand homes are now filled, chest deep, with waves of golden sand. Dunes pour through the doorways and fill the bathtubs. The thing nobody tells you is why it's so well preserved. It's located in a Spurgebiet, or forbidden zone. It's still a restricted diamond area, which means for decades no one was allowed in. There were no scavengers, no vandalism. The town was left to the wind and the sand. Oh, and that X-ray machine? It wasn't just for medical use, it was also used to check that miners weren't swallowing diamonds to smuggle them out. Kolmanskop is a perfect, sand-swallowed ghost of impossible and temporary wealth. Kolmanskop was swallowed by the sand of the desert. But what about a city that was deliberately drowned? We go to China, to the bottom of Qiandao Lake. Qiandao. Here, you won't find crumbling ruins. You'll find an entire city, perfectly preserved in a dark, watery grave. This is Shicheng, or Lion City. It wasn't an ancient ruin, it was a living, breathing city with architecture dating back to the Ming and Qing dynasties in the 1300s. It was a regional hub, with 265 magnificent stone archways, ornate temples, and streets paved with flagstones. Generations of families had lived there. Then, in 1959, the Chinese government needed power. They decided to build a hydroelectric dam and create a massive man-made lake. Lion City was right in the middle of the floodplain. The government gave the order. Over 290,000 people were relocated. They were told to gather their belongings and leave their ancestral homes forever. They had no choice. The water began to rise, and the entire city, along with 27 other towns and over 1,300 villages, was slowly submerged. For 50 years, it was forgotten, a footnote in the story of China's progress. Then, in 2001, divers rediscovered it. What they found was astonishing. The city hadn't collapsed, it hadn't rotted, the cold, still water had preserved it. It was China's Atlantis. Divers who go down today describe a silent, perfectly intact world. The ornate wooden beams and staircases are still in place. The massive city gates with intricate carvings of lions, dragons, and phoenixes are still standing. You can swim down streets past buildings and see a snapshot of life in 1959, just as it was left. It's an entire city sacrificed for progress. Waiting in the dark. A city sacrificed for progress is a modern tragedy. But the most famous ghost town of all wasn't drowned by water. It was entombed in ash. Our final stop is Pompeii, Italy. In the year 79 AD, this was a bustling, lively, and prosperous Roman city. People were shopping in the Forum, eating at fast food counters called thermopolia, drinking wine, and living their lives at the foot of a large green mountain. They didn't even know it was a volcano. The word volcano didn't exist. They just called it Mount Vesuvius. There had been warnings. A massive earthquake had badly damaged the city 17 years earlier, but the residents were wealthy and they rebuilt. They just thought the ground was unstable. Then, around noon on an autumn day, Vesuvius erupted. It exploded with a power 100,000 times greater than the atomic bomb. It shot a column of ash, gas, and rock 20 miles into the sky. For hours, the city was buried in falling pumice. But the worst was yet to come. In the early hours of the next morning, a pyroclastic surge, a superheated 100-mile-per-hour cloud of ash and toxic gas, raced down the mountain. It was over 500 degrees Fahrenheit. It killed everyone instantly. Vesuvius buried Pompeii and the nearby town of Herculaneum under more than 20 feet of volcanic ash and pumice. And then it was forgotten. The thing nobody tells you is how it was preserved. The ash wasn't just a blanket, it was an airtight seal. It entombed the city. It protected it from air, moisture, and time. When archaeologists began excavating it centuries later, they found a perfect snapshot of Roman life. They found bread still in the ovens, carbonized by the heat. They found graffiti on the walls, just like ours, including political ads, lovers' messages, and simple insults. They found a mosaic at a doorway that reads, "Cave Canem, beware of the dog." And most hauntingly, they found the people. The bodies themselves had decomposed, but they left hollow voids in the hardened ash in the exact shape of their final moments. By pouring plaster into these voids, archaeologists created haunting casts of the residents, a mother shielding her child, a man curled in on himself, a dog still chained, writhing in its final agony. Pompeii isn't just a ruin, it is the most famous and most tragic archaeological snapshot of a catastrophe ever found. From cities that died of old age to those drowned by progress, from towns frozen by nuclear fire to those swallowed by sand and ash. We've seen homes on cliffs, under the earth, and in the path of volcanoes. These places prove that for humanity, impossible is just a suggestion. Home isn't just about safety or comfort, it's about defiance, faith, greed, and ultimately survival. And when that survival fails, it leaves a ghost, frozen in time with a story to tell. What's the one place you would never dare to live? Let us know in the comments. And if you want to see more astounding places, be sure to like and subscribe.